My today's presentation is about the Green Recovery Plan for Ukraine, for Western Bug in Sian River basins that belong to the Baltic Sea basin. And I'd like to probably start with such a notification about 2 weeks ago, August 14th, was the Western Bug Day. And this celebration was initiated back in 2019 by the Basin Management, Basin Council of the Western Bug River, and this gives us an opportunity to annually celebrate, and not only celebrate the river, but also remember about peculiarities and the needs of the Western Bug River and Sun Rivers basin. This is a very unique basin that has about 2% of all of the basins based within the Ukrainian territory, and its peculiarity is that the Western Bug River and Sun River basins belong to the Vistula basins and the Baltic Sea. So, what do we do when we have these celebration days, when we have the Western Bug River Day? The council and management of the basin are trying to hold a number of events to raise awareness about the peculiarities of the rivers belonging to the basin. They have different type of cleaning events, and even have competitions uh, dedicated to demonstrate the beauty of the rivers of the Western Bug. For example, this year we had the children's drawing competition, Picturesque Rivers of the Western Bug, that was held within the basin borders. So in Lviv and Volyn regions of Ukraine, and you can see on this slide the beautiful works drawn by children that participated in this competition. But apart from celebrating the Western Bug River Day, I'd also like to go back to the topic related to the Green Recovery and Restoration Plan of Ukraine for the Western Bug and Sian River basins. Why do we talk about that? Is because this basin is the basin of the Baltic Sea, and our partners, Clean Baltic Coalition, are focusing on protection this area. And since we belong to the sub-basin, uh, our partners' interest and our interest in protecting the area are the same, and we are both interested in creating such a plan to support eco-friendly status for the Vistula River Basin. All right. And a couple of words about the basin itself. You can see on the screen this slide shows a nice and beautiful map representing the Western Bug River and Seine River basin. And if we're talking about the Western Bug River basin, it's in yellow. In orange, you can see the Seine River basin, and all of this territory at the moment is what we are interested in. It's not the largest territory, it's actually the smallest basin out of all of the nine allocated in Ukraine. It's only 2% of um, Ukraine's territory, but we have some urgent needs that we need to start solving right now in order to preserve the recreational objects and the surface water and the groundwater that are important for us. So basically, when designing this plan, we identified three key directions we are most interested in. And the very first one is the direction that's called eutrophication, meaning that all of the activities need to reduce this eutrophication of the surface waters. And among the suggested activities, we can list a realization and implementation of the program for reconstruction of the priority waterways treatment plans. This is implementation of sustainable sanitation programs in communities with absent or partial sewage coverage, preventing the groundwater pollution depletion of the Western Buck River and Sian River basins by restoring groundwater monitoring, implementation of the trade directive, and good agricultural practices to reduce nutrient overflow and fertilizer overflows in agriculture, establishing buffer zones along the territories in areas sensitive to nitrate pollution, and promotion of organic production and consumption by involving in the public procurement system. And here I'd like to um, actually broaden all of these directions and speak a bit more about these to understand and explain what do we plan to do and what kind of tasks are within the plan. But I'd also like to mention the challenges that we face and that we need to overcome in order to implement these plans. So first of all, the very first challenge is that uh, because we had internal displaced persons moving to the west of Ukraine, and the sewage treatment facilities in the Vistula Basin had an increase in the load capacity and increase in wastewater. Also, low efficiency of existing sewage treatment facilities, lack of national funding to modernize the treatment facilities, as well as we know that um, when the full-scale invasion started, the monitoring of the groundwater was stopped and interrupted. So all of these factors have immense negative impact on the quality uh, of the surface water. So what do we suggest as solution? Uh, and this is also a priority for us, this modernizing and consumption. And it's important for us to solve all of these issues, to suggest alternative solutions for smaller municipalities No, and here we're talking about such municipalities that do not have the general sewerage system. These are mostly rural areas and they need alternative solutions. Also, it would be efficient to provide funding through development of co-investment schemes. This is in terms of our cooperation with NGOs and say financial institutions based in the EU. And also, it's required to restore the monitoring of groundwaters because as we know, that's a very important aspect for understanding the quality and the volume of groundwaters. Another uh, uh, possibly positive solution would be implementation of good agricultural practices to reduce the nutrient runoffs and promoting organic products within the domestic market by introducing the procurements by schools and kindergartens, other public institutions. Now, let's have a look at a couple of photos just to make sure that we have visual as well as text. And on this slide right now, you can see the photo below is from our Lviv water treatment facilities that are unfortunately, well, are not efficient enough. Let's phrase it like this, and we know that. And basically, we can say that even though the water and sewage treatment objects went directly destructed by the war, but let's keep in mind that the load was increased way over their capacity because of the population movement and internally displaced person arrival. And right now we have a document, governmental document prepared in Ukraine. These documents are going to indicate the water framework implementation, and they have a number of activities aimed at achieving good results. We have 54 activities for construction and reconstruction of the treatment facilities and networks, and the constructions are within Lviv and other cities within the Vistula Basin. Also, that's an open question about the alternative local treatment facilities to serve to small communities and villages. And we even today need to work on suggesting and offering to communities, people living on the territories of this basin, the solutions to find such an alternative for this or other community. Apart from that, on this slide, you can see also such a very nice image showing us the buffer zones or the so-called recovery of the buffer zone along the Western Back River, and that's very important. But I also need to point out that it's important on those territories that are sensitive to nitrate pollution. And In Ukraine, the buffer zones were created in 50s of the previous century, and within the last years, they were negatively impacted by the parasitic invasive species and also deforestation and the logging. So as a result, sometimes at the agricultural enterprises, there are no buffer zones at all, and this negatively impacts the aeration and erosion and overflow from the fields of pesticides and mineral fertilizers that negatively impact the water and also result in this eutrophication. So what is the solution? The development of a detailed plan on the restoration of these buffer zones, designing and creating new non-invasive uh, uh, buffer zones uh, and also improving the conditions and state of existing buffer zones by cooperation with the communities, farms, and so on. All right. And I'd also like to highlight and point out the role in promotion of organic goods by involvement in the state procurement. We know that in Ukraine, we have very nice development of the organic products and production. Ukraine was listed as top number 3 by export of organic products and goods into EU. But the farms that were producing these goods were reduced because of the invasion and war. And as of end of 2022, the overall farms creating and producing organic products was 263,000 or 0.6% of the overall in total agricultural farms. And in our opinion, production of organic goods is important, especially considering that we have already allocated and indicated nitrate sensitive zones, and the plans are to identify the whole of territory of Ukraine as such a zone. And on the way here, it would be great to suggest to smaller farms biological methods of work and approaches, and also support the organic production that exists today, and also um, suggest that they participate in the state procurements. This could support the very domestic organic foods market and increase the number of fields producing such goods, decrease the load and need for water resources, and also help decrease this eutrophication process. All right. Another direction that's pretty important for our joint plans and Ukraine's recovery within the basin of rivers, the Western Bug and Sian rivers. This is biodiversity, and this direction has a very interesting, I'd say, um, list of activities that could be implemented within the basin as territories. And among the main directions and activities here, we've identified protection of the black stork and the black stork habitats, developing eco trails, and support of Rivet and Peatlands National Park and protection of objects within the Emerald Network. And I'd like to say a couple of words about the protection of the black stork species. And what I'd like to share is that actually the Western Bug River Basin and Sian River have unique territories where the black stork was uh, seen. This is a species listed in uh, Appendix 2 of the Berne Convention, protected on the territories of Polisa and Carpathian districts. In the territories of nesting and irregular living during the migration, it was suggested that in these nesting areas, we need to create nature conservation objects. In 2018, the Ministry for Ecology and Natural Resources of Ukraine adopted an action plan aimed at preserving the black stork in Ukraine to preserve and protect the species. At the same time, we can see that there are some negative factors impacting the population of the black storks, and these are the drainage and also the loggings, poaching, um, and low level of eco-awareness uh, during the nesting period of this bird. What can we suggest as a solution? This is monitoring of the nesting areas and identifying these territories as a special nature protection status to preserve the population, and also optimization of the forest wood resources usage and special hydro regime in these territories of nesting, and creating a network of nature protection areas to preserve this species. What's next? Well, going back to protection of objects of the Emerald Network, here I'd like to highlight that this Emerald Network or the MRI network, the nature conservation areas to protect species and habitats threatened by extinction within the whole of the continent. And it's planned that after Ukraine joins, in a sense, to EU, the MRI network will also be joined with Natura 2000 network. These are the nature conservation objects created with the same aim, but within the EU territory, and it will enable the possibility of funding for environmental protection. What do we do in with this aim in Ukraine? In 2018, the November 30th, Ukraine officially adopted the list of MRI objects on its territory, and we know that Ukraine has about 377 sites like this, and 162 sites were nominated to receive such a status. Um, but we're mostly interested in the basins of the Western Bug River and Sian River basins. And within this basin, we have 15 sites belonging to the Emerald Network. And what's the largest problem right now is that none of these sites have a management and development plans. And uh, what a challenge do we face? First and foremost, to adopt the law on the Emerald Network, um, broaden the list of sites and include new sites and objects, and also actively participate in the management plans for the Emerald Network sites belonging to the basins of the Western Bug River and Sian River. All right. Also, I'd like to say a couple of words about another um, direction about hazardous substances and litter. Basically, we uh, identified for the future plan the three main items. These are establishing the collection system for outdated pharmaceuticals in pharmacies and healthcare. Also setting up system for safe management of pesticides, including in private households, and prevention of environmental pollution with microplastics. And right now, I'd like to provide more details on these activities. So today, Ukraine uh, has an issue with uh, pharmaceuticals and hazardous substances because the collection system from the population is outside of the legal framework, and population have lots of antibiotics and different drugs because we have inefficient treatment facilities and inefficient collective system. It leads and results to such a situation when such substances get into the environment. Today in Ukraine, we do not have pharmaceuticals, obsolete pharmaceuticals on the priority list for the broadening of responsibilities for manufacturers. What kind of solutions do we have? That's cooperation of NGOs with the Ministry of Health of Ukraine and Minister for Environmental Protection, Natural Resources of Ukraine to create an effective system of collecting the outdated drugs within pharmacies and healthcare facilities, collect these outdated and obsolete drugs from the population in order to control their spread and um, the next direction is the system in creating the system for safe management of pesticides, including in private households. Today in Ukraine, we have a growing trend of using more hazardous pesticides. In Ukraine, at the moment, we do not have a definition of highly hazardous pesticides. About a third of all agricultural chemicals and pesticides allowed to use in Ukraine as of 2019 within the highly hazardous category. This is over 1,125 chemicals. Apart from the agriculture, a large part of the highly hazardous pesticides are used for non-agricultural purposes, for example, biocides, as a means for protection against the insects and disinfectants, so on. So lack of awareness and informational campaign aimed at farmers and manufacturers about the negative impact of using these pesticides on the environment and health. It impacts the management and the use, but not only the farms, but also households. That is why we have the following solutions. Cooperation with agricultural farms and enterprises on raising awareness and promoting biological methods, advocating for legal definition of highly hazardous pesticides, information awareness campaign for parents and within the schools about the negative impact of pesticides in the household and agricultural works, and also uh, recovering the already contaminated areas. So implementing the projects with phytoremediation for these sites. And the last slide is prevention of environmental pollution with microplastics. As we know, microplastics is one of the main pollutants of our century. And it is known that it cannot completely decompose in the environment. It only transforms and gets smaller. It depends on the contact with liquids, temperature, and other factors. We know that the highest concentration of microplastics in water is near the densely populated cities. So how does the microplastic get into the water and into the surface waters specifically? This is via the wastewater, sewage overflows, surface runoffs, plastic waste. For example, after the use of some plastic products and then it just being thrown outside and gets into the landfills, uh, and also from atmospheric precipitation, because microplastics could be within the air or on the surface of soil, could be absorbed by raindrops and then also carried by the wind. Uh, for today, what do we have in Ukraine? And what do we do to prevent the microplastics pollution? July the 9th, 2023, Ukraine adopted the law on waste management and became valid. And January 1st, 2023, there was another law on limiting the use of plastic packages And this brings Ukraine closer to the EU laws on limiting the use of plastic packaging and bags. And this also encourages Ukraine's implementation of the EU legislation to reduce and limit the waste that could be recycled. We can say that at the same time, we know that starting from 2023, within the retail and service industry, it's forbidden to use those ultra thin plastic packaging, but not all of the networks did that, mostly larger retail objects. That is why we need to provide alternative solutions, biodegradable packaging, for example, or any other alternatives to those plastic packaging. And we also need to point out that we do not have measuring of microplastics in Ukraine. There is not a single state program for monitoring of microplastics and its impact on environment. What are the solutions? This is developing and implementing the system to monitor and manage this also within the basin that we're discussing, a ban on using the uh, plastic packaging for the single use, broadening the responsibility for manufacturers, and including this topic into the educational curriculum within the schools, explaining the harm. We also suggest in our plan on green restoration of Ukraine, development and monitoring, implementation, measurement, and reporting to improve the data and knowledge on microplastics within the basin of the Western Bug River and the Sian rivers. So, thank you. Thank you for your attention. I understand that it was a very information-packed presentation, but I'd like to say that this plan is the one that involves participation of experts and NGOs. That is why we call upon all of the interested uh, people who have expert knowledge to participate in the development of this plan of the green restoration of the Western Bug River and Sian River basins and contribute to restoration of the water sector of Ukraine and in particular of the Western Bug River and Sian River. Thank you for your attention.